All right, good morning and welcome for 21st, 2024 workshop of the Orlando City Council. The Gators won on Saturday, so everybody should be happy. And FSU did not. But we're not here to talk about football. Talk about our fabulous downtown. So today we're going to have a presentation on our DTO action plan, which is really critical to moving our downtown forward. It represents a collective effort to transfer a lot of bold ideas into actionable strategies and to enforce the ultimate goal of having a great quality of life for everybody that lives, works, visits, and plays in our downtown. So there's a lot about streets, there's a lot about parks, and there's a lot about being welcoming and inclusive. So David Barilla will bring us up to date on what we now call the DTO action plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. And thanks for this opportunity. It's an exciting morning for me. Always excited to talk about downtown, but today's exceptionally special. So we'll just go ahead and get it started. We got a lot to cover. So first of all, I think hopefully you see the presentation in view. I want to start with just a quick reminder to help us all remember how far we've come, but also understand the role that each of the various plans that we've had in the past have really brought us to today. The first of which was obviously Project DTO. A name that has now become a staple. It was actually, if you can remember, the first time we started using, the terminology DTO, and it sure has caught fire and taken over downtown by storm. But in that process, we really had the opportunity to invite the community to come alongside us. For them. We had over 6,000 people, believe it or not, engaged. The top photo that you see was a midday mingle. It was hot, and it felt like all 6,000 people were there with us that day to kind of do a little dot exercise. But at the core of that initiative, we had what you see before you, 9 different task forces with 71 people, and also an executive advisory committee of 26 people. A number of those individuals are sitting out with us today to really see the next component. So would you all mind just waving so we can all see? But pretty much it's everybody here participated in one way or another. So thank you so much for all the things that you shared before and being with us as we continue to move forward. So I'm going to go back a slide just for a second, because what I want to do is show you the context of how this all comes together. So we took those visions, those big ideas that I referenced, and then we incorporated them into our DTO Outlook. So the Outlook, as you know, is the CRA plan, which really allows us to pursue the types of initiatives, those big dreams, those aspirations that many of the people that we just saw really shared with us. It helps us bring those to reality. And that led us to what the DTO action plan ultimately is. So sometimes people can get caught up on, is this a new vision plan? And no, it is not. The DTO action plan is a vision-driven plan. It is driven by the visions that the community really help us set in Project DTO, but it's research-based, it has a strategic framework, and it's a set of actions. At the end of this presentation, you'll see a set of 14 very specific actions that really help us make all of this come to fruition. And as you see there, it's for advancing downtown, the competitiveness of it, the vibrancy of it, and ultimately the growth of downtown Orlando. So with that, there's been a number of people involved, and I wanted to take just a minute to recognize them. Pretty much, I feel like every person on city staff has touched this plan as we've been working on it in some way, shape, or form. But there's been 2 core groups that have really worked day to day, lots of meetings, lots of time, lots of documents to read and provide feedback on. So there was a core city and CRA project team that would meet with our consultant team on their ideas, help refine them. All of those trickled up to the executive leadership team, all of these people who really helped to refine them at that point and ensure that they were structured in a way that would really lead to a successful fruition. We also had a very extensive group of both local and internationally known consultants. You see their names there before you, but it really allowed us to expose ourselves to best concepts from around the world and bring them here to our beloved DTO. And then today, we're fortunate to have three of them with us that will be presenting some of this information. So the first of which, Cassie Branham. Cassie is the principal in charge. She's also the global design leader for Perkins & Will. She has some local roots. She actually went to Lake Brantley. It's been really interesting and fun to see her get to really engage her historic and personal knowledge of Orlando with so many of the international experiences that she has had over the years since. We have Jeff Williams, who is the urban design leader for Perkins & Will. He's also a Gator at that context for the conversation of earlier. But what Jeff really does is he focuses on the intersection of infrastructure and culture, which is at the heart of really what we set out to do with this plan. So his guidance has been immensely helpful. And together, both Jeff and Cassie have worked on downtown plans throughout the country, on countless cities, as well as international destinations from Europe to the Middle East, China, and even in Dubai, as we were talking about last night. So a wealth of information and expertise that they brought to the table. And Allison Fletcher, not to be missed, has really, she leads the active transportation and safety segments for Nelson and Nygaard, was educated at both William and Mary and Cornell, and she is truly passionate on how mobility can play a role in enhancing all of our lives. So with that, I'm going to move us forward to a brief video that'll introduce us to the plan, show some of the great concepts that the mayor showcased in the state of downtown last week, and then launch off with Cassie that'll walk us through some of the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of our DTO action plan.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hope you enjoyed the video that walked you through a little bit of the summary of the action plan that we're going to take you through in a bit more detail today. As David said, my name is Cassie Branham, and I lead urban design and planning for Perkins & Will. And I've had the honor of leading this project on behalf of you, the city staff, and all the community members in the city of Orlando. If we can move, I can move myself. Okay, so before we get into the details of the action plan, we wanted to just remind you a bit of the geography, the area, the focus of this project. And if you can look at the slide in front of you, you can see, downtown as it's positioned within the larger region. And for this project, we've really been focused on the downtown core. And this core, we specifically gave you some quick facts there in the bottom left-hand corner of the geometry and the scale. But I think what's most important about this is the 30-minute walk and the 10-minute walk. And Mr. Mayor, when we met with you to kick off this project, you had just been in New York, and you told us this lovely story of walking in Manhattan and how you were walking, and it was only a 45-minute walk. And we immediately went and measured the walk distance of the core of downtown Orlando and came back and said, well, if 45 minutes is a comfortable walk in a city like New York, what's going to make a 30-minute walk comfortable in a city like Orlando? And that's really what's driven a lot of these recommendations. A 5-minute walk, 6 5-minute walks long. We can all walk 5 minutes, but it has to be comfortable. It has to be a place that we want to be in. And it's really this message of walkability that I'm here to bring you today. So I think what's most important in everything that we discuss is that this is all grounded as as David mentioned in the beginning. This is all grounded in data, and there's research, there's science, and there's a lot of investigations that went into these recommendations. So we call this an audit. It was a multi-factored audit. We used multiple lenses, these 3 that you can see, and conducted all of the analyses that you can see underneath these 3 kind of lenses in order to understand really what are the conditions on the ground, and if we're talking about walkability and we're talking about a great place, what is it that needs to maybe change, or what are the opportunities for transformation in the future. And so this audit, while we studied it through these lenses, there are some overarching activities I thought it would be helpful for you all to understand. One is we did a deep dive in all of the planning and all of the current thoughts of what's happening in the city and specifically in downtown. So this was a very deep plan review that had a lot of follow-up with city staff and individuals to understand what has worked, what hasn't worked, why certain plans are in place. And I have to compliment you, there's a lot of really great planning happening in the city. And what this plan tries to do is bring all of it together into the core of downtown to find opportunities for these plans to really layer on top of each other and kind of make more than just the sum of the parts. We also conducted stakeholder interviews. As David said, this was a vision-based plan. The vision came before us, but we wanted to confirm that the vision was still in place and better understand the conditions on the ground. We went through the stakeholder review process in 2022, so I'm just going to note that some of these comments might be a little dated, but this is what we heard at the time. We also conducted a walkable city audit week where our entire team, as well as city staff, spent time walking every street, spending time in every open space, understanding the downtown from a qualitative perspective at different times of day. So we were out walking at 10 a.m. and at 10 p.m. because we know that downtown Orlando changes depending on time. We've also been during multiple seasons and really tried to understand what is the differences between, the beautiful weather that we'll probably experience today and that really hot July afternoon right before it rains and then right after it rains. And what are those sorts of experiences that future people will have when they're in downtown. During this process, the data piece that David mentioned, I'll get it right that time, was quite a long one that we collected over 25,000 data points across the city. You can see on the slide before you some of the list of those data sets that we identified. We were both collecting when we were here, we were confirming, and this is all a database that will be shared back with city staff, so that through implementation, through tracking future efforts, the city now has an even more detailed, robust data set for the downtown core. Okay, so that's all the homework that went into the plan. So let's get to the plan itself, like the big exciting pieces of the day. So as I said in the beginning, this is first and foremost a plan for a walkable downtown. And in order to create kind of walkability and focusing on, a thriving place that is, as you saw in the video, sustainable and equitable, we really thought most about what would strengthen downtown as a walkable place. And for us, I'm sorry, I'm going to stay on this topic for just a minute. We're focusing on walkability because this allows for the systems and structures for places to actually grow and advance over time. You attract people to place if they can walk. People attract people. This is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that the rewards continue to grow. And so this focus of walkability is kind of the underlying message that you'll hear from all of us as we talk through these recommendations. To actually get to the recommendations themselves, we had a lot of conversations about how to actually structure an action plan. And the actions in an action plan are very clear. You need them. Yeah, you need actions. The other piece is, I think, the City of Orlando's focus on impact, that it has to be double-sided, that we have to think about the impacts that we're trying to make through these actions and plan those actions to result in those impacts. So the plan itself is organized around these two kind of, we're calling them intersecting threads, that you have to think about what you're trying to create, and then you have to create the things in order to get there, or the roadmap, so to speak. And so in terms of impact, as you heard from David, as you heard from Mayor Dyer, as you saw in the video, that we're really focused on the impact that downtown can have on the larger region. There's a huge opportunity to think and continue to grow downtown as the regional kind of social hub for the area and for Central Florida, the place where people come to for social activities, for the regional creative ecosystem of this being the destination that a company would want to be in, that people would want to live in. Two, an impact on cultivating vibrant neighborhoods. You can think of downtown as a neighborhood itself. You can also think of the micro neighborhoods that exist and the neighborhoods that surround the downtown core. And we should be focused on building those up and letting everyone have their own character in order to thrive in their own way. And then kind of last, but certainly not least, and probably the most important, is this plan should impact a person, an individual, a small business owner, a child, a person walking down the street, and their health and safety in the world. That all of those things of basic needs and opportunities of bringing people together need to be considered through this project. So that gets us to kind of what are those actions, so the other side of the coin, so to speak. So there's three things, as you saw in the video, that this plan is working to achieve. One, a place for everyone. Two, a public realm for people. And three, a network of easy movement. And I'm going through these quickly because the rest of our presentation today will walk through each of those and the corresponding actions in more detail. Okay, so I'm going to kick off a Downtown is for Everyone, and then I'm going to have my colleagues, Jeff and Allison, join me for the next two pieces. So from a Downtown is for Everyone perspective, what we're really focused on is this idea of a central social district, of a place where people come together to be social, to be active, to be outside, to engage with their community and their city in different ways. And with this concept, we started by understanding where we are today, where downtown is, and the venues program and everything that has been done in downtown Orlando is exceptional. It is not many cities that have taken such a big motivation, a big step in that direction to establish such large cultural assets for their city around and in their downtown. And what we've found through this process is that we would recommend more of that, but at different scales. That right now the venues are very large, and there's a lot of opportunity to support with smaller scale. The History Center is an example of this. Some of the things happening on Pine Street, that this is happening. It's just, let's amplify it even more. So that's really the opportunity, is how do we continue to build some of this social life into downtown at a smaller scale. And so the big idea, this one has these 5 kind of priorities within it of the arts ecosystem, which is pretty incredible in Orlando as a creative city within the world, and how do we distill that and push it even further in downtown. Small businesses, there's an incredible amount of small businesses already here, and how do you continue to grow that ecosystem? Technology, Creative Village is a wonderful example of this, and how does that continue to grow? So again, these are not new things. This is continuing on the path you're on, and continuing to kind of cultivate maybe where certain things are located. Me to the vision. And there's 3 things that we're focused on as it relates to a downtown for everyone. And it really goes to this map of what is the geography and what are the opportunities that you have based on what's in downtown today. One is that in terms of the central social district, we see huge opportunities on Livingston, Magnolia, Church, and parts of Orange to really focus on a more art-based kind of street life with the active uses that sit within these corridors. When you're connecting things like Creative Village down to Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center and over to the Kia Center and everything that exists beyond the strong network of major venues and major activities that are already happening, and we feel like that's a major space to continue to amplify. We also see an opportunity to potentially add another venue, something that starts to hit at family-friendly activities happening in downtown. This wouldn't necessarily have to be a large thing, it could be a small thing, but I think continuing to grow that diversity of uses and audiences. From a use perspective, when we look at this core, we actually see 3 kind of micro neighborhoods. Each of them have their own character, which should be kind of accepted, adopted, brought to the forefront as redevelopment, the public realm opportunities. Again, Magnolia and Pine as big corridors connecting them. And then when we look at the core area, we also see redevelopment opportunities. And this is not a redevelopment plan, so I will put that out there very clearly. But this is an action plan, and we are talking about the public realm. And so we thought it was important to be able to say, when you're looking out at the city and you're seeing vacant parking lots or you're seeing city-owned land that might need to be redeveloped one day, what are those places and how does that connect into the public tissue? So you'll see some recommendations around this in the future. And so with that, actions.
Thanks, Cassie. I'm going to talk about making downtown a place that is easy to get around, and that the streets support what downtown wants to be. That is a place for all people, all modes. It prioritizes local circulation and access. There are safe speeds, and that the streets have a character that reinforces this being a place that has vitality in the adjacent land uses. There are strategies in our plan that make the streets comfortable, interesting, that unify the streetscape, that create vital walking, biking, and transit networks, and that help us see streets as open spaces in their own rights, as places that people come together, where they have festivals, and where you come to celebrate what it is to be in your city. As Cassie mentioned, we heavily studied your downtown. We came here, we did a lot of field work, we did a lot of desktop analysis, we reviewed past plans, we reviewed thousands of points of data across all the different ways of how people travel and traverse the downtown. We also brought in national experts, and some things that rose to the top are that the one-way streets are, of course, frustrating, that you could be getting more out of your transit system in the downtown, you don't have a complete bike network, and you also have a sidewalk environment that can be narrow, that can be bumpy, where you might be buzzed by high-speed moving traffic that has no buffer between you and being on the sidewalk. But we also see a ton of opportunity in the streets. You have great bones in the downtown, a walkable block structure. You have, with this transition to two-way streets, a lot of opportunities to re-envision the biking and the transit network and have a full spectrum of ways of getting around the downtown that has clarity, that has predictability, that has purpose, and reinforces access, mobility, and what this place wants to be. To help us realize this, there's 7 or many more different actions that help us realize this opportunity in addition to the two-way streets, as I mentioned, connecting the urban trail network, clarifying what limo is within the downtown, creating access to the curb, increasing bike parking, having these end-of-trip facilities to make your trip more intuitive, and slowing the speeds in the downtown creates safety, which in turn creates more walkability in the downtown, which is vital for the thriving downtown that Orlando wants to continue to be. So with the future of the multimodal networks, having this complete, clear, comfortable transit network and your biking network adds depths and layers to the downtown. Whether you take transit or bike here in the first place, you can opt to do this. It makes your downtown more nimble, it creates more choice and reliability, and makes downtown active as the heart of the city. It gives you those options. With limos specifically, we work on transit networks all across the country, and good downtown transit systems are clear, they're direct, they're intuitive, and they're simple. We analyzed a lot of the data about how the system is performing today, went through a lot of different alternatives to come up with the recommendations which we have here, which will also benefit the local link buses as well, getting those not on bi-directional streets, but on one street together running north-south with transit priority that'll also benefit the limo system. Specifically, the Orange Line would become a north-south connector that would go all the way up to the North Quarter and down to Orlando Health, running on Orange Avenue. The Lime Line would become a connector between Creative would have that priority at each of the intersection. And the Grapefruit Line, which is performing really great today, can do even more, going a little bit further to the west, having more bus lanes, having a more simple and direct line on Central Avenue instead of navigating or having pivots for different events. So you have this predictable back and forth to get you east and west, and having a clear purpose and anchor to each of these lines in the transit system. Your city likewise has a really great bike plan for the city, but this plan has been realizing what is that within the downtown. To have more biking, and you need to have complete networks, not little patches and gaps here and there. So we were clarifying where that would go in the east-west, north-south direction, looking at the urban trails, supporting the team out where the downtown loop will navigate the downtown, also looking at Gertrude's Walk and creating a connection south to south of downtown, looking at Livingston Street as a linear park that has tree shade and more placemaking, supporting an east-west urban trail there as well, and then using Rosalind Avenue to have a north-south connector that parallels the Gertrude Trail to have a north-south connection on the east side of downtown itself. Having that will support a network of low-stress connect scooters off of the sidewalk and have invite more people of all ages and abilities to choose to bike, whether it's for a short trip or whether it's getting to and from the downtown. Generally, restructuring the streets in your downtown will make your downtown friendly to locals and visit alike. I think that you've had this in your visions for a long time to go to two-way streets, and you know the benefits that these have, but just recapping these, this creates more direct connections to your destination, especially for visitors to know exactly where they're going, not having to circle as much, not creating as many excess unnecessary trips, not getting frustrated and potentially leaving the downtown, not having to go through as many intersections. This is also great for emergency access. It's also great for slowing speeds and unlocking walkability, which in turn creates a really great pedestrian experience. So specifically, we'll be transforming what is Orange, Magnolia, and Rosalind and a couple of your connecting east-west streets so that this is a better place for getting around, whether you're driving, whether that's where transit is routing on streets, whether that's the trails being connected, or if you're trying to have a better experience trying to predictably cross the street.
Okay. So the two-way network creates the foundation for a walkable downtown. It's going to slow speeds, make a safer environment, eliminate some redundant circulation that goes on in a one-way network. And so once we've conditioned the city for walking, we need to give people a surface to walk on. And the audit that we did showed a tapestry, really, of different eras of implementation, different maintenance regimes over time in the sidewalk network. Our technical audit also showed a patchwork, and it's a patchwork of standards, and so there's as many as 7 different pavement standards in downtown. It also showed a patchwork of compliance. It's only about a third of the streets in downtown even comply with the standards that are there today. So there's just a of different pavement standards and applications out in your downtown. And so we want to simplify that. And so why are we simplifying this? One is for legibility. And really the second is for long-term maintenance. And so you see 3 colors on this map. But this is really 2 flavors of one standard, which we call performance. And this is your universal sidewalk standard. On key corridors in your downtown, Orange, sections of Roslyn, we're proposing to elevate quality, some natural stone curbing, and some pavers in certain locations. And so you have one standard with 2 flavors, and then when you make exceptions, well, we think those should be exceptional. Those should be really exceptional places, and you'll see some imagery here in the presentation of some of those streets, Magnolia and Church to be specific. Although we're simplifying the sidewalk network, really has to address all of the complexities of the downtown urban environment. And I'm identifying a few here on this image. And I do want to, before we look at pictures, want to talk about some of the details of the natural systems here, the furnishings, the paving. And so right now we're proposing a standard downtown palette of furnishings so that everywhere in downtown you get this kind of simple classic look, simple benches, easy to maintain, receptacles, bike racks. In some of the places that are more exceptional, we think you should open the door for a more contemporary palette. So here on Church Street, potentially. Your downtown streets are intimately linked to your environment here in Central Florida. They convey water directly into the lake network around downtown, and they need to do more in terms of water quality. From an environmental standpoint, nothing does more for urban ecology than trees. And we surveyed during our audit, and we found about 1,800 shade trees, which are really the most important tree for your downtown. But only a 30% coverage of the sidewalks with shade. And so we've proposed doubling that. And so that's 4,000 shade trees total in your downtown. 4,000 trees is a forest. And that's a generational investment. And we think a generational investment needs to be planted in the right way. And I know this is way down in the weeds for a presentation, but it's very important that we want to plant that generational investment in the right conditions in sites with soil cells. You would be a leading city in this country to plant all of your downtown trees in soil cells. So the sidewalks are simple. These are planted well in a high performance way. When we get a little bit of extra room, we put that space into doing things for people and also for the environment. Your downtown streets are cluttered with utilities and power poles all over the place, and we're looking to set a standard of how to clean that up and where to locate that so that you can have a clean downtown environment. This is a view of Orange Avenue. Here we are looking north with the new streetscape. This is a 2-way street. You can see the pedestrian crossing. You can see the way that the tree canopy is planted and some of the details. This is not the sexiest image, but this is a workhorse street for your downtown. There are places, though, that we think the investment will bear out in terms of the outcome, and this is a view of Magnolia looking north, and I'll talk about this more as we get into Magnolia in just a moment. This is one of the exceptional streets. Mayor Dyer did such an exceptional job at the State of the Downtown describing this, but like streets, that if we pour our focus and care into people's comfort in the downtown, their enjoyment of the downtown, that by extension, we would be treating downtown Orlando as if it is a park itself, a place that has coordinated activities, coordinated standards, that everywhere you go, place to place to place, it offers you something. And we're working with an environment that exists today, and so we have to bring your downtown forward while adding new parks and new destinations. And so we think this is an incredible opportunity, and this is a big idea to take this bold step forward, to create a place that's special on an everyday basis, but also for those moments that so many people come to downtown for, the big events, the big game. There are strategies that we're employing here. I won't go through them all, but you can. I will pinpoint. Lighting at night is sort of what shade is for the day, to make people comfortable being out in downtown Orlando during night. Of taking the kinds of offerings and not concentrating them all in one place, but spreading them out through your downtown. And we're doing this through a series of different spaces at all scales. And I'm going to show you some of those. The first are our gateway spaces. And these are the entry point for so many people into downtown Orlando. They also provide such an important connection between downtown Orlando and the surrounding neighborhood. Some of these exist today and are well-loved. Lake Eola, that has a wonderful master plan already. And some of these don't yet exist. So a park intended for the Midtown site in the north, the Canopy, which you know about underneath I-4, and then places that have just been long overlooked, like Lake Lucerne. And so from a downtown perspective, we need to be able to get to those parks. Here we are at the corner of Roslyn and Central, where we're looking at the fountain in the center of Lake Eola, but there's this unceremonious gateway that you don't have access to the park. And so this plan provides an action to create a more open gateway and an inviting experience leading into the lakefront of your signature park. Lake Lucerne on the south is an incredible natural feature that got swallowed by highway infrastructure. And we want to reclaim that, and reclaim it in a number of different ways. It's the vehicular entrance into downtown, and we think that can be more ceremonial. Here with a fountain upon entry, that there needs to be places for people to go and be able to sit, watch the sunset behind downtown, give places for families to go, give places for downtown visitors to walk and jog, even take a few steps after the show at Dr. Phillips. And so those are the gateways. Once you're within downtown, a lot of the experience of the city is the experience of streets, and the two most important from a social perspective are Church Street and Magnolia, forming the backbone of your urban core. Right now, this is this is a street with so much history here in Orlando, but it's sun-baked. It's the pavement is broken up, and it needs a new life, and a new life that brings forward some of the materials, the historical materials, like the brick street, but opens this up as a place for engagement that slows traffic and allows fluid pedestrian movement back and forth to help energize businesses as they come back to Church Street. And the same is true for the eastern side of Church Street. A better street will better engage businesses, allow restaurants to spill out, and activate the city. We think a complement to West Court would be some kind of interactive feature in the plaza at the center of Church Street, a draw before the game or after the game on your way home. Here we're in the space, the City Common parking garage is behind us and Church Street Station is in front of us. This is the beginning of and end of many people's experience of downtown Orlando, and we think that that should be much more enjoyable, that your game day experience or your event experience should start with your first footsteps into downtown. The next is, we've taken a similar approach with Magnolia here, but breaking it into 3 different segments, and I'll show you a few of those. Allison described the sort of the stranglehold that infrastructure has put on downtown space, and this section of Magnolia in front of the courthouse is no exception, that the limo lanes, the one-way network, are just taking space away from people. And we think some of that space should be given back. Here is our universal sidewalk looking north towards the courthouse. In front of Sky House, there's this jug handle that's like a very strange piece of engineering that had to be here. And it does some service for the businesses. All of these parking spaces can be relocated onto the street, but we think this could do a little bit more for the residents here. And we're proposing an expansion of Kevin Tyeski Park. So instead of standing here and figuring out how to pay the meter, we think this should be a dog park for the emerging residential community in this area of downtown. There should be spaces for restaurants to spill out from that building. Spaces that the downtown businesses that are in the base of this building can use. And as we move further south on Magnolia, here, really the civic heart of downtown, the library and the History Center and Heritage Square, these need to be joined together in a much more meaningful way. And so this is one of those exceptional streets, but this is tied to recommendations we have about, a spill-out space, a reading terrace from the library, going into Heritage Square, that it's not very visible how you get into that space. We think there should be a more legible gateway, that instead of an inaccessible water feature that is turned off, there should be an accessible one that's good for families and creates activation as a destination. There should be a space that can be programmed for events. There should be food service, but we shouldn't get rid of the things that are nice about Heritage Square, the beautiful trees, and those can set the conditions for nice, quiet spaces in the downtown, which are so important. The last section of Magnolia is the furthest south, and this is passing through the churches. Going to DPAC, and the extra right-of-way here we think can do some important service for the environment, to make a nice place for people to walk, but also to help clean stormwater as it's moving south on Magnolia towards Lake Lucerne. The next set of spaces, so one more set of images before I hand it back over to David, are the smallest, and these are our neighborhood parks, and the one that we, from the first day we were in downtown Orlando, we kept looking at this vacant lot and believing it's at the, almost the 0 point of the city, and it could do so much more. And small downtown parks, pocket parks and plazas can provide an incredible amenity for downtown workers, downtown visitors during the day, but also can be programmed to be a beacon at night and help anchor your downtown, particularly with lighting and food service. So from the smallest details to the largest, we've been thinking about them with your master plan.
All right, well, that was a lot, I know, but there's a lot of work to be done. As I referenced in the beginning, the imagery that you saw is ultimately a replication of what 14 different actual projects will bring to downtown Orlando. And we've structured those in almost like two groups. You see the first concept called early activations and then some catalytic projects underneath. With your support, you will see a lot of familiar things there because we've already taken actions to start to bring components of the action plan to fruition. Obviously, earlier this year, we went under contract to purchase 30 South, the gateway as well into Lake Eola that you saw imagery of to start to bring that before us. Just last Friday, I actually was on the site walk with our construction team to start work on Church Street. The week before that, it was work along Magnolia that has already kicked off to bring, again, these amazing visions that the people here and obviously you all put before us several years ago to fruition. But with that said, each of these will be coming back before you for obviously individual votes, like some of the ones that you voted on earlier this year in the appropriate ways to make them happen. We talked about what's happening now, but what's next? So as I stated with Project DTO, various components that haven't already been addressed in our CRA plan will come back before you. There's no vote today, but we will have a plan amendment that incorporates these concepts, these visions, these specific improvements into the CRA plan, because that leads us into the project funding component. It is envisioned that the CRA would be the one on the funding partner to bring all of these concepts and components to the reality for downtown, and they will be, I don't think anyone that I've had the chance to sit and talk through and really understand the concept and how these change the future for downtown Orlando. This, as I determine, or not as I determine, but as I say, is really the CRA's swan song in many ways. The CRA will sunset in 2041, and we have one really great shot at transforming our downtown for generations to come. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, either myself or the team.
Great. Excuse me, great presentation, David and team, a lot of work and a lot of effort, but now the work actually begins.
That it does.
That's all the pre-work into the real work. Okay, commissioners, Commissioner Sheehan, then Commissioner Rose.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dyer. And you know, having been here a while, I've seen these plans and plans and plans and plans, and how here's another plan. And I'm like, when are we going to quit planning and do something? I mean, you know, David, I mean, no disrespect, but here's another pile of paper instead of actually doing stuff. And I want us to see us actually do stuff. One of my frustrations, having been on this council for a while, is the bike trail connections. We have the missing links all over. You cannot ride your bike safely in downtown. It cannot be an alternative for people. And I've told Cade Broad, I will ride my new e-bike with you, and we will go, and I will show you where you know, all you have to buy me is a hamburger. You don't have to spend $100,000 or whatever on another study. Let's find out where these links are and build them. I mean, I'm frustrated with the lack of performance, I guess, is my statement. And we're getting at another presentation, and we're not doing stuff. So about the walkable city, I have been fussing about the ADA accessible ramps, about the scooters and the crap all in the right-of-ways. And again, these are action items. We don't need to keep studying them. We need to do something about them. Find ways to do something. Let's figure out parking. Again, you know, let's just get something done. Another thing on the bicycle infrastructure is that people ride their bikes downtown. They have nice expensive e-bikes which get stolen. So we need to have lockers. We need to have secure parking. We don't do these things for people. We wonder why they won't do our alternatives, because who wants to get their bike stolen when they ride it into downtown? We don't do enough with two-wheel motorized vehicle parking, because motorcycle people share parking spaces. When we have a large event, people can put 6 or 7 motorcycles in one spot, and it's just an efficient way to utilize parking, but we don't do anything with two-wheeled motorized vehicle parking. I got to run around with the transportation people and beg for spaces when these are things we should be. Again, we plan for stuff. We have these grand plans, but we don't do stuff that impacts people's day-to-day lives that help them enjoy downtown. I love the art-based street life, but this council was the one that passed the mural ordinance, which has created this rich situation. When Orlando City came in and they want to do those murals, and they said they can only have them for a very short period of time. So we've done that. So why do we have to keep having a consultant tell us how nice the murals are? We already did that. So again, I want to see us we keep regurgitating the facts rather than finding ways to implement plans that will make a difference for our residents and our visitors. We've been talking about the two-way streets for 15 years, at least. So again, we don't need another plan or study to tell us that two-way streets are good. We need to just do it. And we need to have goals for implementation. I'm glad that was on the last page, but we need to make it happen. And I hate the street furniture. The pallets do not say Orlando. It's not special. It's just generic like every other city. I think something that we have that's cool and fun is a little Orlando benches that say Orlando. Why can't we find ways to do things that are special rather than the same regurgitated stuff that somebody pulls off a rack and a shelf and uses the same thing over and over and over again? Again, we pay consultants to do that same thing over and over and over again rather than do something special and fun and cool that says Orlando. So I love Orlando. I want us to see us do good stuff. And, you know, I'm glad that they talked about the corner of Rosalind and Central. But again, that was a group that of people that came together that wanted to buy that park. It seems like everybody's taking credit for what other people are doing, but yeah, and I agree with activating that space and making it wonderful. But you know, the consultants aren't making this stuff happen. There are people that are really doing really good work that are making this stuff happen. And I just want us to quit consulting, quit studying, and let's make something happen. So, and I don't want to sit through another PowerPoint where somebody reads it to me and tells me this is what we want to do, but we never do anything. I agree with you. We'd have a limited time. The CRA is going to sunset. We need to make this stuff happen. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Rose?
Good afternoon, well, good morning. I have a totally different perspective. As someone who has been a staff member when we did the original Project DTO, I think we've made great strides. Few things, I agree with Commissioner Sheehan. We do transportation, I'd like and planning, I'd like you all to work on scooter policies and figuring out how do we make it a little more stringent because the scooters are being left all over the streets. Glad to see limo extension, we've talked about that. Going into the West Lakes area. Ultimately, that helps with all of the other venues, soccer stadium as well as Camping World Stadium. Would like us, and I know I spoke with Sherry recently about changes to the mural policy. I would like for us to see that so that it's more inclusive of individuals. When you look at Wynwood and being able to see art from the street, I bear with you, Cassie. I've been there before as a staff where Mayor Dyer comes back home from another city and says, we need to get this done right away. So I feel your pain. I've been there. We were in the middle of a nighttime study and he said, I went here, we need to bring this. So thank you for being able to adjust and meet the needs within that. And then lastly, I know there was a rendering that was mistakenly at the State of Downtown, but I would like for us to truly put commitment into memorializing Thomas Chapman in the Thomas Chapman Park. Staff, keep up the great work from all the departments. Let's make this happen. Commissioner Sheehan, we're gonna get it done before 2041, I promise you. But you know that means
I'll be dead by then. But hey, let's try to get some of it done.
that includes the economic development that'll happen in this community and ensuring that we're an enticing city for larger corporations to come here so that we can increase our economics and our base. So thank you for your hard work, David, staff and consultants, and it feels good to be on the other side making these a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stewart?
Thank you, Mayor. A great presentation. I appreciate the hard work, and Mayor, the good presentation in front of DTO last week. A couple of specific questions that kind of concern me. Commissioner Sheehan is correct. We've been working on two-way streets. I can remember arguing with Thomas years ago about it. And I remember talking about getting two-way streets on Orange and Rosalind, that was going to be our core experiment to see if it can actually work there. Part of the reason why we did the trail changes along Orange Avenue was specifically for that reason. Yeah, this plan abandons that, at least it appears to abandon that. So there's nothing happening north of Colonial, which concerns me. Which brings me to my second point. Your study area is great to have a 30-minute walking distance. But you've essentially left out the DDB. You've taken a smaller portion of the downtown development area which means you've left out north of Colonial, and you've left out the Creative Village in the same process. Now, I know you've connected the Creative Village, but when I look at this, we have a wonderful southern gateway, and we ought to do something about Lake Lucerne, and I agree completely with your plans. We ought to do it, and I agree with Commissioner Sheehan. Let's do it yesterday. But there is a gateway from the north, and the gateway is going to eventually be anchored with a $70 or $80 million building that's the Holocaust Center is going to build. And it seems to me that this plan has, it looks to me like it's missed 3 or 4 blocks that can be crucial to a northern entrance to our community. That is covered both by the CRA as well as covered by the DDB, as well as covered by the primary entrance from the north, from, you know, a fourth or a fifth of the people, if not more, coming to downtown Orlando. So it seems to me that this plan looks like you get off I-4 and you go down one way until you get to Colonial, and all of a sudden it becomes two-way. It seems to me this plan ought to address some traffic needs going north to I-4, and it seems to be it's been abandoned for that. And then the last part is that we've done a lot of good work on Orange Avenue, but we've not done a lot of good work on Roslyn in cooperation of the northern portion north of Colonial. So looks like there's some work that could be done, especially in terms of walkability in that area, and that concerns me because you know, we have a good, wonderful southern entrance that we need to do a lot with. We have a good, wonderful northern entrance that it seems to me that DTO abandoned, which I don't like. So we need to look at those northern southern entrances and make them part of the plan.
Sure, and thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up, because I do think it's important. You're speaking to the North Quarter plan that we talked about today. The context of that, and you're absolutely right, was sought to really be the component that led out on a two-way conversion for downtown. And that plan led us through the North Quarter that you mentioned all the way down to Amelia. Our transportation department had been working on that. That component of really Orange Avenue in that area is controlled, I should say, by FDOT. So we really haven't had, unfortunately, the amount of progress and partnership, I think, that could bring that to fruition. Still working on it, and it is not forgotten by any means. In order for this component of the two-way to really be able to work the way that it's designed to do, it absolutely needs to have that implementation along with it. I just don't want you to think that that is abandoned or forgotten. It was that we have the design, so to speak, in already. This was now connecting that and bringing it through the downtown. On the other side of your comments, just for awareness, if nothing else, the area, I sometimes say you kind of, you have to define a boundary, and there's really never a perfect place to say, okay, you stop here or you stop there. The two-way conversion, because that was a foundational element of this plan, because we have talked about it for 15 years, but what we have today through this that we didn't have before is which streets need to be two-way? How big do they need to be? Where are those turns? What traffic lights can we get rid of? The specific components so we can actually take the actions and make them come to fruition. The context of the improvements, the PED, the bike components, absolutely, it's envisioned. If you remember the first or second slide when we looked at the map, there's a bigger region of downtown, and we absolutely need to extend those concepts out to make this all work together. Those boundaries are really to look at, okay, how did we match up with the North Quarter plan and the concepts that we have already?
Well, while I appreciate you, let me just argue with you for a moment.
Sure.
The second largest concentration of people who live in downtown is the North Quarter. If you can't figure out how to get them to be able to use pedestrian in their own environment, won't walk out, and they will get in their car and they'll try to drive 8 or 9 blocks, which is a bad idea. We've got a lot of good feeling, mojo, if you want to call it that. We've got a lot of that on the Orange Avenue side, but we don't have that on the other side. And we have some new projects coming on Roslyn coming up. That seems to me that is a wonderful way to do it. I'm more concerned about the fact that you're coming off I-4 and you tap it into a 3-lane one-way and eventually 2-way, and then all of a sudden now you're into a 2-way. So the transition we always felt like to make Orange Avenue work was a transition that happened at I-4 and Orange Avenue, not at Colonial and Orange Avenue. So, and in respect to what you say, all of Orange Avenue, so it doesn't make any sense for us to abandon, to say we can't do stuff on one side when north of Colonial is also a state road too. So you take the entire area. But I think that whole corridor needs to be addressed, and this appears not to address that. This appears to say we're not Colonial. All the stuff south is great, but you've got a large section there, and you've also got this large section of Creative Village. So when I look at it here, I look at it, we've set I-4, and I understand that's somebody's got to draw a map someplace, but on the edge of that is going to be a multi-million-dollar, tens of million-dollar park that's supposed to connect to the other side of I-4. So it seems to me that we ought to be spending more time trying to figure out how we make that east-west connection if we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars on the Canopy project. If we're not, then let's kind of put a wall there, which we, this city. Now, those are my thoughts just because the boundary is concerned. Inside what you're doing, I think is right. I agree with Patty that we've made some progresses, but when you look at 7 different standards for downtown, it looks to me like every time we look at a project, we look at 3 blocks instead of looking at 15 blocks. So let's make these 3 blocks look great. We don't look at the entire amount, and I think having the overall plan accomplished for us, which I think tends to work. So. Thank you. I appreciate the work. I just want to do larger area.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. And David, thanks to you and the team of professionals. You know where I'm going with this question. You're way ahead of me. Great ideas. I think everybody here is ready for some changes downtown. And I've always focused certainly on the residential piece, but also the business component. How do we get our office buildings filled up and attract more employers downtown? And I think this is a good step. My question, and you've helped me in the past, but as we go forward with this, I'm going to focus more on great ideas, but they look pretty expensive to me. So how do we pay for this? And it's not just the initial improvements, but the programming and the ongoing maintenance down the road. Because if we're going to spend the kind of money it looks like we're going to spend, we got to make sure we maintain it. So as we go through this, and I know you've started with some of this and shared that with me, that's kind of my focus is how do we pay for all this? And assuming these improvements, you got to think that the CRA tax bucket's going to get bigger because you're improving things and value should go up. So there's a component of that. But if the CRA can't do this, then how are we going to pay for it? And if we ultimately go back to the taxpayers to help pay for this, I think we owe it to those folks to share that and make sure they're ready to this. But I think we also have to be fiscally responsible and make sure what we do, not only can we pay for it on the front end, but we have the money to maintain it and keep it in good form. So thank you. Thanks.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, David, and the team. That was a great presentation, great research planning, vision plan, and renderings. Just like Commissioner Gray was talking, I want to hear more about what's going to be the cost, the ballpark cost to bring this to fruition. The safety component, I didn't hear much about that. I understand that a lot of those things are created for safety. I don't hear about it, so the public hears about it so they feel safe. Except that involved in this, are we going to be using more cameras for downtown? And like Commissioner Sheehan also mentioned, I want to hear more about ADA. Big issue we have in our city. A lot of our disabled people have been ostracized. This got to stop. We have to go ahead and make them part of our community. So I'd like to hear more of those particular items. Besides that, great presentation. I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be great. But let's also, like Commissioner Gray said, let's find out how much is this going to cost. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, David, team. Thank you all the stakeholders in downtown for your support today as well. It's always nice to have a lot of nice smiling faces in the audience. I think we're going to have anger this afternoon, so it's a pleasant morning. So with that, we will stand adjourned.